Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Todos Santos. This is episode number 11. Today we're going to be working on the tip of this peninsula here, and we're going to be building kind of a ferry terminal. And you can see this big parking lot here is going to be sort of like a park and ride station, so that people can drive here, park, and take the ferry across the bay to the main island area. And across on the other side of the bay, there's going to be, of course, another ferry terminal where it will meet up and the ferry will run back and forth. I'm thinking the other side will probably be a little bigger and have like a bigger park and ride area, because there will be more people coming from the other side of the island over to this, the Old Town area, as opposed to people going from the Old Town area down to the main island. And I'm thinking that's because there will be quite a few jobs here in the Old Town area, but not as many residences. So I'm imagining that more people will be commuting into the Old Town than they will be out of it. So we kind of have a small one here, and as you can see, I just used the vanilla one, which I think actually looks pretty good, and for this application I think works fine. I'll probably find a custom asset when we do the other ferry terminal on the other side of the bay. And as you can see here, I'm working with Ronix's dock assets, which look fantastic, and they're not the most straightforward to use, but I think once you get the hang of them, I had kind of forgotten how to use them at this point. I've used them in the past, a while ago, about a year ago, but I kind of had to just figure it out by myself again. He does have a YouTube video showing how to do it, and that's pretty good. I just didn't have time to watch that. So as you can see, I'm just kind of messing around with it here and trying to figure it out. And eventually I get it, and if you have the grid on and snapping on and move it, it makes it pretty straightforward to work with, I think. And then I just use more of those. You can see that road down in the water is basically just kind of defining the two levels of land here, so that the dock it has more of a sheer cliff, and it's not like pieces of land popping out and showing through, which would not look good. And eventually we actually do get some of that once we put some buildings on top here, but it's not too bad, and I think overall it looks really nice. So I did a poll on the last video asking you guys like what frequency you wanted me to upload each series on this channel, because I have this one, and then I also have Alpenglow, which is kind of my side project. It's not like my main series at all on this channel, which is more focused on like expansion and traffic and transit and stuff like that. And you guys said 3 of each in a row overall, which I think sounds pretty good, but I am thinking, because Todos Santos is my main series and Alpenglow is kind of my side project, that I would do 1 episode of Todos Santos a week for 3 weeks, and then over the course of 2 weeks I'd upload 3 episodes of Alpenglow, so I'd still have 2 episodes on Friday, and then I'd fit one in somewhere else. So I'm thinking I'm going to try that, because I think I want to have more of these videos and have them kind of be a little bit more consistent. Whereas Alpenglow, I kind of the inspiration comes more in bursts, and but I do have a few of those episodes all pretty much ready to go, because I've recorded most of the time lapse for that series. So I really just need to sit down and do this voiceover stuff. So I wanted to kind of detail this ferry area with to make it look like it's kind of an enclosed area and it's pretty much only used for the ferries. I do change that a little bit. All this stuff around the parking lot stays the same, because that is kind of like a private area. It's only for people who are paying for park and ride or whatever. But the areas around the little road itself, the one-way road that goes around toward the ferry terminal, I'd eventually decide to remove a lot of those brick walls and make it kind of more public street, because we add some buildings along here, because originally I just had this plain dock and the ferry terminal, and it looked really weird. So I decided to make it public street and add some buildings along here, and I think it adds a lot, and you'll see that in a little bit. And those aren't the only buildings we add in this episode, because we actually do end up filling out this whole peninsula area and finishing it off. It looks really nice. I don't show all of it on camera, but I'll show you kind of some snippets of what I've done, and I think you'll get the idea of like how how the whole thing looks. And we'll have some extra cinematics at the end since I left out a lot of stuff in the time lapse, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. So as you can see, I'm continuing along with this kind of theme of the red brick tiling there. I think that looks pretty nice, and I'm trying to keep that in this kind of general area as like the theme of like public areas that are a little more pedestrian centered. I imagine that maybe these all would have been done kind of at once in this area and are kind of consistent in how they look. And here you can see I'm adding this little wooden pier here, which I think is kind of nice. I basically wanted it looked kind of dead in this area with just the one dock poking out. So I wanted to add a few more, and this one's kind of just like a public pedestrian pier where they can go out and just hang out. And then we're starting to add these brick walls here just to kind of make it like a consistent look around the whole thing. And I think I actually don't add enough docks during this build, so I might come back and add some more just to kind of add. It's mostly like retrofitted industrial docks serving as like a pedestrian central place. I'm imagining this used to be like the main port of this island when the city was quite small, and now of course we're gonna have quite a massive port across the bay. So this has kind of gone into disuse and eventually was retrofitted to be like a pedestrian area for the most part. And now, as you can see, we're adding some buildings. At first I have some trouble kind of figuring out how to actually place them and get them up here, but it works pretty well. And you'll see they kind of have a really plain back, so I add these storefronts here, and I don't think that's actually quite enough. So off camera I do come back and all I do is copy those two apartment buildings and flip them around so that it appears that there are windows on the back. Well, there are windows on the back, and that helps kind of make it look a little cleaner and a little more realistic, I think. And I'm just doing some basic detailing here. I wanted to kind of work with these assets. I didn't want to cover up too much. So just there's a set of stairs there to get up to the door, and then a little loading bay. I imagine maybe there's like a cafe or a grocery store down here or something. So it's probably a little out of proportion, but I think it looks fine. And then here I wanted to kind of add a little bit of, like I was talking about, like an older industrial area that's now something else. These are actually residential buildings, but I think they have kind of a fitting industrial look. And I really like these buildings. These look really industrial to me. Obviously you can tell they're apartments because they have like doors and little balconies and stuff. But I think if you kind of blur your eyes, they look pretty industrial and they really fit this area. But I'm imagining that maybe they're like lofts now, like it used to be an industrial building and they've been remodeled into residential space, and maybe that's why they look like they do. I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool either way. And here you can see I'm adding these yellow lines here. I'm not going to do that too many spaces in the city, but I thought it would be, since this is kind of one of those high focus areas I've been talking about, I thought it would be nice to have yellow curbs to show that it's, just a pickup drop off zone and that there's no parking. And here's what I'm talking about with one of these old looking dock type things. I think that fits in pretty nicely, and I try to blend it in a little bit in a minute with some textures and stuff, but I think it looks pretty nice. And I do wish I had added more during this build, like I said, so I think I'll come back and add some more, maybe in between the ferry dock and this kind of industrial dock, or on the other side, or both. I'll just kind of mess around with some stuff and see how it looks. But that's not in the episode or anything. And then we have those rocks there. I was just trying to kind of blend the dock into the landscape itself. And I feel like I don't like frequent docks or anything, so I don't know exactly how they work. But I feel like I've definitely seen docks that kind of are either, I don't know if they're fit into like natural rocky areas, or if the rocks are added after the dock is built as kind of a way to blend it in. I don't know. But I just wanted some way to kind of not have it just be this like sheer, 90-degree angle between the dock and the landscape. And now I'm just adding these signs here really quickly. Again, high focus area, so I want to have signs and some decals, hopefully just to give it a little bit of realism and make it look pretty cool, I think. And that's about it for the actual ferry terminal. I think I do a little bit more off camera that I don't show, but we're going to be moving on for this episode into this kind of public parking lot area. I imagine this would be like a paid parking lot. And I mentioned this, I think a couple episodes ago or something. There is a pretty big parking lot in this area in San Juan. So I wanted to try to not replicate it, but just take that idea and kind of run with it. So what I wanted to do is have like a really relatively nicely manicured parking lot that's as pedestrian friendly as it can be. So we have these curbs here kind of separating the different parts, and they're separating it, but I feel like it kind of helps blend the parking lot roads together and make it look like one big asphalt area. And then down the middle of the parking lots, we actually have more of these curbs, and we're going to add some kind of like sidewalk looking things, and people actually do walk up and down the middle of these parking lots. Yeah, you can see I'm using these ploppable, I don't know what they're called, ploppable curbs or something like that. But those are pretty cool to fill in gaps and make it look like a sidewalk. And that was just about exactly what I needed here, so I used that. The idea was to have kind of like this sidewalk that's going down the middle, so that people can walk down it, have crosswalks at the each end, so that people have kind of a delineated space to go to, and then have these curbs around it, like on the sides, is kind of like not a natural barrier, but a nicer looking barrier to protect people that are walking down the middle from the cars that are driving around the parking lot, because people seem to always drive through parking lots way too fast. And of course we need some shade in the parking lot, and that's something I noticed in the real life one, if you look at it on Google Maps, is that there are a lot of trees here, and of course it gets pretty hot in this area, so you need some shade. So I decided to go with palm trees above the cars, because they don't provide as much shade, so you don't need as much, it's not as important to shade the cars as it is the pedestrians. And then we just have some nice leafy trees along the pedestrian walkways to provide shade. And as you can see here, I'm using this really nice looking hedge asset. I like this asset a lot. And of course my favorite, iron fence. And just kind of in combination, the hedge adds a nice look, and the fence adds just kind of a nice little barrier between the parking lot and the rest of this area, which is kind of an industrial area, as you'll see in the cinematics. So I wanted it to be like not super open. It's kind of a little more, there's a little bit of security here, even if it's just a fence. And then so I've never actually used these angled parking assets before. I used to actually not even have them installed, because I just figured I'd just use the normal ones. But for this, I wanted to have kind of a one-way system for the parking lot, where cars go in on one side and drive through, go around, and then they can go back out onto the kind of the through road of the parking lot. And I think it actually works really nicely, and it fits really well. The reason I did that is because I have that extra space taken up in the center, so there's not enough space for two cars to go through and around the parking lot. So it's just like one lane where the car goes in one direction, and I think it works really nicely. And I don't know why I created that little spot with decals there. There's an asset that should fit in there, but whatever. And of course you need some proper signage, especially in a kind of a one-way thing like this. You need some do not enter signs, some one-way signs, and of course stop signs. I like signs a lot. If you haven't noticed that by now, I think they add a lot of detail, and there's just something really cool about kind of finishing off a road network with some signs. And then I have these posts here just to kind of delineate where the pedestrians go, and we have this little path along the side, so that if people wanted to for some reason go into this kind of industrial area, they could get there from the parking lot. And you saw me before actually connect some of those nodes with traffic manager, and that's basically just to make it so that cars drive through it as if it's a one-way thing, and it works pretty well, I think. Not a lot of cars actually drive through it, but they do park. But overall, I think it worked pretty well. And I'm actually having some issues with Traffic Manager, because there's like the new fixed version for the Industries DLC that someone else uploaded, and I downloaded it, and it's supposed to not remove all your lane connections and priority signs and stuff, but it did for me, and all my default speed limits and stuff, which is not ideal. I actually had to go through and redo all of them, and then my game crashed and I hadn't saved, so I'm gonna have to redo it again. but I'm thinking I might just go back to the original traffic manager mod, because I wasn't having any issues with it, so I'm not sure. I think the fixed version basically fixes some bugs with like toll booths or something, which isn't something I'm going to be using, as far as I know. If I do make a toll booth, it'll just be a custom one using using the traffic manager tools. So I'm thinking I might just go back to the original, see if I can salvage all my progress with traffic manager, because going through and redoing that twice is not something I really want to do, especially if I'm not going to get any benefit out of it. The only thing that worries me going forward is if I have that and there's another update and it's broken completely and the mod author hasn't updated, then if I have to go back and get the new version, I'm going to have to do a lot more in order to kind of get back my traffic manager progress. But the mod author said that it's not supposed to remove all of your progress, so maybe I did something wrong. That's possible. What I might do is reinstall the game, delete all my mods, and then resubscribe to the new version, and maybe that would kind of eliminate any sort of conflict. I've found that if you have issues with this game, definitely reinstalling, deleting all your mods, like in your local files, and then re-downloading them, making sure you have a list of all the mods that you have and assets that you have, otherwise you're going to lose that, and making sure you have that, and uninstalling the game, reinstalling it, subscribing to all your mods again. I've found that can fix a lot of problems, and even one time for me it improved performance. I'm not sure why, that might have been a fluke, but that might be worth trying if you're having some issues, and I might try that and try to actually negate the crashing that I had when I downloaded the new DLCs, which I think is what caused that crash when I was redoing all of my traffic manager stuff, because I did get Industries and Park Life both at once, and I switched that mod, so I'm assuming there's something in there that the game didn't like and it just crashed. And as you can see, I'm detailing this is like a kind of a gentrified office commercial retail area, and I think it looks pretty nice. My game crashed also while I was doing this. Well, it didn't crash. It had an issue where I would hit save and it would just have an infinite saving loop. I'm not sure. That seems to happen to me occasionally. I think it's something to do with what I'm doing in game when I save, because I'm using quick save. So we'll see about that. I redid it off camera. It's a little different, but you get the idea from what I built there. And then I wanted to really have this area like finished off, and I didn't want to leave this blank area here, so I just decided to go with some rocks. It's not really a usable space, so I wanted something here, and there's kind of this little hidden beach there that I imagine not a lot of people go to. It's probably kind of rocky, kind of more dirt than sand, but it's kind of a cool little alcove area there. And then of course this grass here, just to kind of fill in these gaps. I really like to do that because those rocks just don't really go right up to the edge, whereas the grass can kind of fill everything in. And now we're doing the very last thing in this episode, which is just a very simple bus line. It does kind of a loop through the ferry terminal and up and meets up with the main east to west island bus line, and it's pretty nice. Some people ride it, so that's good. And of course we'll be doing more transit later on in the series. So here is the before and after, blatantly stolen from Strict Toaster. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy the cinematics. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Todos Santos, and I can't wait to see you next week on Alpenglow. Bye.